Have you ever wondered if the moon landing really happened? You've probably heard a lot of rumors. The strange shadows in the photos, the American flag that looks like it's waving in the wind, or the fact that there are no stars in the sky. For years, some people have claimed that the Apollo missions were nothing more than a carefully crafted hoax, staged in a Hollywood studio. But what if there's more to the story than meets the eye? With conspiracy theories circulating since the day Neil Armstrong took his first step on the moon, it's easy to get caught up in doubts. So, is there any truth to these claims? Or are they just myths fueled by misinformation and skepticism? Buckle up, because this is going to be one daring ride through space and history. As we dive into the mysteries surrounding the moon landing, it helps to understand the context in which this monumental achievement took place. So let's hit rewind and go back to the late 1960s. The Cold War was at its peak, and the United States and the Soviet Union were fierce rivals, each trying to prove their superiority in science, technology, and power. The space race became a battleground in this larger conflict. At this time, the Soviets had already scored some monumental victories. In 1957, they launched Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite, marking the dawn of the space age. Then, in 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human to orbit the Earth. The pressure was on for the US to make its remarkable feat. It was then that President John F. Kennedy boldly announced that the United States would put a man on the moon and bring him back safely before the end of the decade. It was a huge challenge, but it was one that scientists, engineers, and astronauts were ready to face. With NASA at the helm, everything was set for one of the greatest achievements in human history. Fast forward to July 20th, 1969, the world watched in awe as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, aboard the Apollo 11 mission, made history by landing on the moon. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, Armstrong famously said as he became the first human to set foot on the moon. It was a moment of unimaginable achievement, but even today, more than 50 years later, some still question whether it ever happened. Could the US have just staged it? Were the moon landings nothing more than an elaborate hoax? Let us take a deep dive together. The excitement and significance of the Apollo 11 mission were undeniable, but as the years passed, questions about its authenticity began to surface. Conspiracy theories surrounding the moon landing have persisted almost as long as the event itself, with people questioning the authenticity of the iconic achievement. One of the most famous claims is about the American flag, seen waving in the breeze in a famous photo. Critics argue that this shouldn't be possible in the moon's airless environment. However, NASA has explained that the flag wasn't blowing in the wind. Instead, the astronauts moved the flag when planting it, and the flag's fabric was held in place by horizontal rods, giving it a rippled appearance. No wind is needed, just the way the flag was positioned and the laws of physics at work. Another popular theory focuses on the odd shadows in the moon landing photos, with skeptics suggesting that the lighting was inconsistent, implying the photos were taken in a studio with multiple light sources. The truth, however, is rooted in the moon's rugged surface and the intense sunlight. The uneven terrain bends light in strange ways, causing unusual shadow patterns, and the harsh sunlight only amplifies this effect. While the strange shadows in the moon landing photos can be explained by the unique lighting conditions on the lunar surface, another common claim centers around the absence of stars in the sky, which some argue is further proof the photos were faked. However, the explanation for this is just as straightforward. The cameras used on the Apollo missions were set to expose for the bright surface of the moon, which was much more luminous than the distant stars. Just like on Earth, when you take a photo in broad daylight, stars won't show up because the exposure is too short to capture them. Finally, there's the claim that astronauts couldn't possibly survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts, which surround Earth. Critics argue that the radiation would have been lethal. However, NASA had carefully designed the Apollo spacecraft to shield astronauts from the radiation. The spacecraft also passed through the belts quickly, minimizing exposure and ensuring the astronauts' safety. While conspiracy theories may continue to circulate, The scientific explanations for these apparent anomalies show just how well the mission was planned and executed. The seeds of doubt were planted early, but to understand why these theories gained traction, we need to look back at the origins of the skepticism. So, why did people start doubting the moon landing in the first place? The skepticism about the Apollo 11 mission was sown just a few years after the historic landing, when doubts started to emerge about the authenticity of the moon landing. In 1976, a former technical writer named Bill Kaysing made a bold claim that would spark a firestorm of conspiracy theories. He published a book called "We Never Went to the Moon," in which he argued that the entire Apollo 11 mission was an elaborate hoax. According to Kaysing, NASA simply didn't have the technological capabilities to land a spacecraft on the moon and safely return, suggesting instead that the moon landing had been staged on a Hollywood soundstage, complete with special effects. While Kaysing's claims were largely unsupported by hard evidence, they tapped into the growing distrust of the government and the space program during a time when the Cold War, political scandals, and social upheaval were already fueling a climate of skepticism. His book struck a chord with some, and over the years his ideas gained traction, despite being debunked by scientists, engineers, and experts who pointed to the overwhelming evidence supporting the moon landing. While Kaysing's book helped fuel the conspiracy movement, the question remains: how can we be so sure the moon landing actually happened? The answer lies in the overwhelming evidence that supports it. Thousands of images and hours of video footage document the journey to the moon, capturing every moment of the historic mission. In addition, the astronauts brought back over 800 pounds of moon rocks, which have been carefully studied by scientists around the world, providing valuable insight into the moon's composition. Another key piece of evidence is the laser reflectors left behind by the Apollo mission on the lunar surface. These reflectors have been used by scientists ever since to measure the precise distance between Earth and the moon, offering further confirmation that the landing truly took place. Researchers on Earth can shoot lasers at these reflectors, and the reflected light helps us calculate the distance to the moon down to the centimeter. This technology confirms that these reflectors are still there, right where Apollo 11 left them. Other countries like Japan and China have taken high-resolution photos of the moon's surface that show the landing sites. This physical evidence makes it clear that Apollo 11 really did touch down on the lunar surface. While the evidence for the moon landing is undeniable, it's important to remember that Apollo 11 was more than just a triumph of technology and science. It was a powerful symbol of human courage, ambition, and the spirit of exploration. The physical evidence, from the photos and moon rocks to the laser reflectors and high-resolution images taken by other countries, all confirm that Apollo 11 truly touched down on the lunar surface. But beyond the facts and figures, the mission inspired generations of scientists, engineers, and dreamers, uniting people around the world in a shared sense of pride and wonder. It proved that despite the challenges and doubts, humanity has the capacity to reach for the stars or moon and achieve the extraordinary. So there you have it, the truth about moon landing. Thanks for tuning in to our journey through the past. If you enjoyed exploring history with us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. What historical events do you want us to dive into next? Keep exploring and catch us next time for more eventful insights.